I travelled to one of the most beautiful beaches on the western edge of Great Britain to capture a planet that's only visible for a couple hours each night. My name's Jay, and I'm a beginner astronomer here on YouTube, sharing my journey in the hopes of inspiring people all across the world to start looking up at the night sky. Tonight was a special night for me because it would be the very first time I would ever see Venus. Unfortunately, I won't be observing with my larger Celestron telescope because it's simply just too big to take with us and bring down to a beach. But I have recently acquired a Seestar S50 in case you didn't realise, which of course is a lot more smaller and a lot more transportable, making the journey a whole lot easier to do this. Also, I thought. You see, we had travelled over 2 hours to reach a beach in South Wales called Broadhaven, known for its golden sunset and luscious sands. And of course, our visit delivered exactly that. Almost, because there was one slight problem. Clouds rolling in over the Irish Sea. Normally clouds that far away wouldn't bother me too much because I'm usually confined to my garden and looking near enough straight up in the sky. But this time, it really posed a true threat to my astrophotography. And this was also my very first time taking my telescope out into the wild, so that was also just one extra added stress that I didn't really think that I'd have to deal with until now. After a couple hours of waiting, I finally noticed a bright star shining through a huge gap in the clouds. And there it was, Venus. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to capture this encounter as my Seestar was taking a while to boot up, but I can assure you that I did get at least one image, which was this, which unfortunately just wasn't good enough. And after that, I packed up my gear, got back in the car, and headed on home and called it quits for the night. But then 2 days later, the sky gave me another opportunity. Another chance to capture Venus before it disappears from our evening sky. So once again, I travelled back to Broadhaven Beach to finish what I started. As it happens, I arrived just as the sun was beginning to set, meaning that I didn't have to wait long before it was time to start searching the sky. And after about 20 minutes, there it was. That bright star just above the sunset is actually Venus. But now come the harder part, capturing it. I spent around 20 minutes calibrating my Seestar, which unfortunately cost me a lot of valuable time, and in that time Mercury had just set below the horizon, but that's okay because my main objective for today was Venus. However, even after all that calibration, something just weren't quite right. For some reason, my telescope just would not locate Venus. So it was time for plan B. I decided to manually search for Venus using the controller inside of the Seestar app, which is certainly easier said than done, and after around 20 minutes of playing around with it, I finally located something. It was Saturn, and that meant that Venus had to be close by, because the two planets are currently approaching a conjunction in the night sky. Using just a little bit of knowledge of the night sky, I guided the Seestar just across the horizon, and there it was, Venus. You might notice that Venus looks slightly egg-shaped. That's because we're seeing it from an angle relative to the sun. Just like the moon, Venus goes through phases, sometimes appearing in a thin crescent and other times appearing more fuller like what we see here. And of course, Venus is also incredibly bright, which can also sometimes make it appear slightly distorted in smaller telescopes. But finally, I had done it. Venus was now perfectly centered in my telescope and ready to capture, and after 3 days of trying, I had finally completed my goal. Here is the final image that I captured and stacked. It might not be the most breathtaking image that I've ever taken, but considering the limitations of the Seestar, which is really designed for deep space objects, I would say this is a huge success. But Venus wasn't the only thing I captured that night. I also managed the image of a Monkey Head Nebula, and even the famous Horsehead Nebula. Anyways, thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe as I have plenty more interesting videos coming up, including visiting one of the darkest skies in Great Britain to see what I can see with my Seestar. Anyways, bye for now.